don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hello there. If you just saw my video, you or wait, no, that's not how I want to start this. Buy my book. It's always safe to start it that way. I've been reading my book. I just started chapter 3. Depending on when you're watching this, I might be done with this entire series. Chapter 2 might be out. I might have already finished reading chapter 2. Book 2 might be out. I might have already finished I might have finished everything. Book 3 might be out. I might have a ton of books. I might be old and gray when you're watching this, and I already have like tons of books already under my belt. But yeah, please support me by buying my book. Support the artist. I'm trying to get my wings wet, as it were, or get my beak wet in the field, as it were. So we just met Ash and his family. Fiella. I was butchering the mother's name, which I wrote. Fiella and Corian, the father and mother and father. So they had Corian just hunted a Drake wolf and brought a baby home. That's where I ended it. So, time to continue chapter 3. Meeting of Ash. I think that's what the chapter is called. Ash awoke the next morning with a little Drake wolf curled up off to the side of his head. Ash was pretty much alone in the cottage. His father was good to his word, allowing Ash to sleep in with all his siblings out of the home. Ash was the firstborn of a line on his father's side, known to only have twins, making him already an oddity. And he did not have the beautiful dark colorization of his younger brothers, or the sheer bright beauty of his sisters. No, Ash was as pale as Ash. He had colorless, ghostly skin, snow white hair, and red eyes which made all those who looked upon him feel uncomfortable. Ash did not mind the stares. He was used to it. It was what he had come to know ever since he was born. But what did bother him was the realization and daily reminder that he was alone. Although his mother was from a family without twins, being the first single birth in his father's line, made him feel even more particular than the attention brought to him by his appearance. Regardless of his feelings, though, he had no doubt that his parents and siblings love toward him. And he loved them in turn. But he still could not shake the feeling of aloneness, isolation, and being ostracized. "Oh," Fiella exclaimed, breathing heavily. More like oh. However, I can't do a good female voice. Ash was snapped out of his contemplation by the sound of his mother's heavy breathing and rocking in the chair. He looked around the simple cottage in which his family resided, and at his mother, both her hands resting on her large stomach as she breathed heavily. "Mama, is everything all right?" he asked with a worried voice. His mother looked over at him and gave him a smile. "Oh, I am good. Can you help me to the bed?" she asked in a calm voice as she reached out her hand. Ash approached her and grabbed her hand while supporting her with his right arm as he walked her to the bed. The one raised straw bed at the home, which was on the other side of the room. "Ash," his mother said again, softly, "after I'm in bed, will you please gather your brothers and sisters and make sure they know not to enter the cottage for a little bit?" She winced in pain as she sat down on the bed, and then sighed a breath of relief as she lay back. Then, can you tell your dad I am here? Ash ran out the front, fur door flap, finding his siblings walking along the porch to come in the house, curious of the movement they had heard within. He picked up his two youngest siblings, Della and Darius, outside the front door. Cassie, Chris, let's go play by the barn with the others. He smiled at them, and they excitedly toddled, following him alongside the long porch his father was building. To circle the house, looking for the other two of his siblings, and found them playing in the yard around the side of the cottage. Bella, Blake, he called out to them. They ran towards him with smiles on their faces. What is it, Ash? They both asked in unison. Have you seen Daddy? He went to the animal's house, Bella said. Oh, yes, that's right. Thank you. Can you watch the other children while I go get him from the barn? He asked while handing off Della and Darius, one to Blake and one to Bella. Okay, they said excitedly. What is going on? Blake asked, sensing Ash's urgency. Ash shrugged. I think we're about to have our new sibling today, and began to run toward the barn with a wide smile plastered on his face. The smile was infectious as all his siblings lit up, knowing they would soon have another member in the family. Daddy! Ash yelled as he burst past the two long animal hides. One fell to the ground as he barged in, out of breath. All the animals either scurried or flew away at the sound of Ash's entrance. His father did not look over when Ash entered, as he was at the far end of the barn and in deep concentration, in the middle of lifting a log in the air as he sawed it back and forth on the point of a rock, cutting it for the expansion of the house. The air rippled in a blur, which was the effect magic had on the air around it. What is it, son? He asked, not even breaking his focus. Mommy is laying in bed and told me to get you, Ash said with excitement and urgency. His father dropped his arms, and sparks flew from his hands as he registered what his son had said. He dropped the log and immediately turned, running to the door, which saved him from the backlash of the interrupted cast that had pitched sparks and struck the log, all the while scooping up Ash with one motion. Let's go, he said in an excited yet concentrated voice. Corian carried Ash back to the cottage, leaving the other children playing in the front yard. Corian sat Ash down on the front porch. As he bent down on one knee, keep an eye on the other kids, he said, then stood back up and turned towards the door. As he touched the door flap, he looked back. But first, can you please head down to the river and bring back a bucket of water? He asked with a smile on his face, entering the cottage without waiting for an answer. Ash smiled back and responded to the closing door. Okay. He ran around the porch to where all his siblings were playing in the back and spoke to the oldest two. Can you two keep an eye on everyone? Sure, Blake responded. Where are you going to be? Bella asked. Daddy asked me to get some water from the river, he said while walking past them to pull Darius out of the bucket he had been playing in. In order to use it to get the water, he sat Darius down, then picked up the bucket and began to run with it to the river. Ash had an excited grin plastered on his face while filling the bucket full of water at Gill River. His nervous feet would not stay quiet, and he was bouncing up and down in the river. As soon as the bucket was filled, he pulled it up with both arms, hugging it tightly to his chest as he tried to run as quickly as he could back to the embankment and over the hill without spilling the water. After cresting the hill, in the distance he could see his family's small wooden cottage and his brothers and sisters running around playing outside. As he got closer and they noticed him, they ran toward him to run alongside as he headed to the house with his load. His father, a tall man who was well built due to his work as a farmer, took large steps around the side of the cottage, his hands covered in blood and a bit of tension on his face. He reached out, grabbed the bucket from Ash, and without a word turned to head straight back to the house, closing the door behind him. Ash's smile slipped. "So, is everything all right?" his siblings asked as they looked up at him with respect. The oldest pair were the 6-cycle-old twins, Bella and Blake, who said in unison, "Mommy was loud," and Daddy asked where you were. The youngest pair, Della and Darius, had just turned a cycle old and didn't speak yet. They were being watched by Bella and Blake. "Don't worry, guys. Everything will be all right." Ash rubbed the top of Cassie and Della's heads. "Soon we will have a new baby brother or sister." "I think brother and sister," Chris said in his babyish talk. Ash smiled at him. "Yes, you are right. Given that you are all twins, that would make more sense." The expression was forced. He was excited to have another brother and sister, but though he wouldn't voice it aloud, he was hoping that it would be just another brother or just another sister who he could get along with. He alone had no twin, and he felt incomplete because of it. A baby's cry could be heard from outside. As Ash turned around toward the cottage, his genuine smile returned. No matter how melancholy he felt, he had a new sibling, and that was always a joy. "We have a new one," he said excitedly. He said ecstatically as the others giggled or cheered in their own delighted manner. The baby stopped crying, and a moment or two later, a new cry could be heard. A new cry got the first baby crying along with it, but it did not last long. And then soon they could hear their father's excited cheering. Ash led all his siblings to the front door, where he knocked on the wooden frame. The creaking of the cottage floor could be heard as Corian walked towards the door from the inside. The door opened to reveal his beaming father. "My children, you have a new brother and sister." Corian then looked at Ash with gentle eyes. Ash's younger siblings ran in through the door, excited to meet their new brother and sister. Ash remained outside, staring at his father. Staring as his father reached out, placing his hand on Ash's shoulder, while dropping down to one knee, pulling Ash into a hug. Remember, Ash, you are my most special child. He stepped away from the hug and looked straight into Ash's eyes. Ash stared back, a bit mystified. Then he grinned and continued in behind his father. Ash's mother lay on the bed, breathing lightly, holding a child in each arm. All the others were already crowding around her, cooing and touching the newborn's little heads. Now, everyone, Fiella said in her beautiful crystal voice. His mother was as beautiful as his father was tough. The villagers often whispered of her beauty and would tell stories of how most of the other male villagers had wished to court her. Don't bother, Elise and Ares. They need some quiet, so don't speak so loudly or move around too much. Ash's mother looked at him as he walked closer, his other siblings clearing the path for him. Elise, Ares, this is your big brother, Ash. The babies looked up at their smiling mother and followed her gaze to Ash. Ash looked at his new siblings, and they smiled as their deep brown and blue-green eyes shimmered with fascination. Hello, he said as a grin grew along his face, turning into a smile. I am your big brother. All his troubles were forgotten in the magic that children is. All his troubles were forgotten in the magic that is children. I will always have your back, he whispered to them as he snuck his finger into their tiny little palms, and each infant enclosed one of his fingers in their fist. The end of chapter 3. Guess I'll do a recap right after. I actually like this one. More family-oriented. I enjoyed that. Of course, I wanted to get to a more peaceable aspect before going into more of the hecticness of family. So it's always fun because I tried to include... I'll get into this in the next video. I hope you guys like it. Again, I'll say it again. Please buy my book. I don't know if this would be considered a promotion because technically I'm not getting paid to promote. But if people do buy my work, then technically I am getting paid to promote my own work. But yeah, no, this doesn't count. This is me just saying it is more of a comedic because I'm reading it and spoiling it for everyone anyway. Yeah, thank you all for watching. Yeah, please support me. Yeah, I like the work I do. I mean, that's all that matters. I do it because I enjoy it. It's fun for me. Thank you all for watching. Talk to you next time. Toodles.